on perfect wisdom, with the divisions of the Abhisamayālaṃkāra. Translated by Edward Conze. University of California Press, Berkeley, Los Angeles, London. Translation of the Sutra. Chapter 33. On dedication and rejoicing. Turning over. Turning over in its distinctive function and merit. Maitreya. When Rev. Subhuti. We consider a bodhisattva's meritorious work which is founded on his rejoicing at the merit of others and which, having been made common to all beings, has been dedicated to their supreme enlightenment, and that without taking anything as a basis. And if we compare that with the meritorious work of all beings founded on rejoicing, and with the meritorious work founded on giving, on morality, on meditational development on the part of those who have set out in the vehicle of the disciples or in that of the Pratyeka Buddhas, then a bodhisattva's meritorious work founded on rejoicing which, having been made common to all beings, has been dedicated to their supreme enlightenment, is declared to be the best, the most excellent and sublime, the highest and supreme, with none above it. The turning over under the aspect of baselessness. Unequaled, equaling the unequaled. And why? Because the meritorious work founded on giving, morality and meditational development of all those who belong to the vehicle of the disciples and Pratyeka Buddhas aims at the taming of their own self, the appeasing of their own self, the parinirvana of their own self, and so do their spiritual practices, such as the 37 dharmas which act as wings to enlightenment, to the 6 super-knowledges. But a bodhisattva's meritorious work founded on rejoicing is dedicated to the supreme enlightenment for the taming of all beings, for their appeasing and parinirvana. So far about the function of dedication. Subhuti. This bodhisattva considers the Buddhas and Lords beyond reckoning, innumerable, and measureless, who have won parinirvana in the countless world systems in the 10 directions, in each single direction, and their store of merit, associated with the 6 perfections, and acquired in the span of time which begins with their first production of the thought of enlightenment, proceeds to the time when they won the supreme enlightenment, goes on until they finally entered nirvana in the realm of nirvana which leaves nothing behind, and ends with the vanishing of the good law. He considers the foundation of meritorious work based on giving, morality and meditational development, on the part of those who belong to the vehicles of the disciples and Pratyeka Buddhas. He considers the roots of good, without flows, of those who are still in training, as well as the roots of good, without outflows, of the adepts. He considers the mass of morality of those Tathagatas, the mass of concentration, the mass of wisdom, the mass of emancipation, and the mass of the vision and cognition of emancipation, as well as their solicitude for beings, their great friendliness and great compassion, as well the immeasurable and incalculable Buddha Dharmas, and also the Dharma, which has been demonstrated by those Buddhas and Lords, and the roots of good of those who through this demonstration of Dharma have attained the fruit of a stream winner, 2. The enlightenment of a Pratyeka Buddha, or who through it have entered on the Bodhisattva's special way of salvation, and also the wholesome roots which have been planted under those Tathagatas or Arhats who have now entered parinirvana. In his meditational development he piles up all that mass of merit and rejoices over it with the most excellent and sublime jubilation, the highest and utmost jubilation, with none above it, unequaled, equaling the unequaled. Having rejoiced he would make the wholesome root associated with the rejoicing common to all beings and dedicate it to their supreme enlightenment, with the words, "May it feed the supreme enlightenment of myself and of all beings." Now, when a follower of the great vehicle turns over his thought in such a manner, do then those foundations of merit and the objects involved in these contemplations exist in such a way, and are they apprehended in such a way that they would be treated as signs by those sons of good family who belong to the great vehicle? Maitreya. Those foundations and objects are not apprehended in such a way that they are turned over into the supreme enlightenment after they have been treated as signs. Subhuti. If he had, on foundations which do not exist and through objects which do not exist, treated as a sign those Buddhas and Lords and their wholesome roots, as well as the disciples and Pratyeka Buddhas, the learners and adepts, and their wholesome roots, all of which he had turned over into the supreme enlightenment by way of a sign, should he not beware of a perversion of perception, thinking that their impermanence in the impermanent, ease in suffering, what belongs to a self in what does not belong to a self, calm in what is not calm, there must be a perverted perception, perverted thought, perverted view. But is it not so that as the foundations and objects are non-existent, so is enlightenment too? So is all knowledge. But if, just as the foundations and objects, so the enlightenment, the thought, form too, the Buddha Dharmas are non-existent, then what is the foundation? What the object? What the enlightenment? What a thought? What a wholesome root? And what that foundation of meritorious work associated with rejoicing which is turned over into the supreme enlightenment? Maitreya. If Rev. Subhuti. The Bodhisattva is one who has coursed in the 6 perfections, who has honored many Buddhas, who has planted wholesome roots, who is upheld by good spiritual friends, and who trains in dharmas as empty of their own marks. Then he is able to turn over into the supreme enlightenment without having made into a sign those foundations and objects, those Buddhas and Lords, those wholesome roots, and those foundations of meritorious work associated with rejoicing. But he succeeds in turning over neither by way of duality nor by way of non-duality, not by way of sign nor by way of the signless, not by way of a basis nor by way of non-basis, not by way of defilement or by way of purification, not by way of production or by way of stopping. If, however, those bodhisattvas have not coursed in the 6 perfections, have not honored the Buddhas, have not planted wholesome roots, are not upheld by good spiritual friends, and have not trained in dharmas as empty of their own marks, then they turn over into the supreme enlightenment while making those foundations and objects into signs, as well as those wholesome roots and those productions of thought associated with rejoicing. But this perfection of wisdom expounded in such a way, should not be taught in front of a bodhisattva who has newly set out in the vehicle. And so with the other perfections, and the 18 kinds of emptiness. And why? For would lose that little faith which is his, that little serenity, affection, and respect which are his, in front of an irreversible bodhisattva, great being, should this be taught and expounded, and also the other perfections in the 18 kinds of emptiness. When he has heard, he will not tremble nor be frightened or terrified, if he is one who has been taken hold of by the good friend, if he is upheld by the good friend, has done his duties under the jhanas of the past, has planted wholesome roots and honored many Buddhas, then a bodhisattva can turn over into the supreme enlightenment, the foundation of meritorious work associated with rejoicing. Subhuti. That thought by which one has rejoiced and turned over, that thought is at the time of turning over extinct, stopped, departed, reversed, and so are those foundations and objects. What then is the thought associated with rejoicing, what foundations and objects, and what the wholesome root, which he turns over into the supreme enlightenment? What is the thought which he turns over, if 2 thoughts can never meet, and if the own being of a thought cannot possibly be overturned? But if a bodhisattva, who courses in the perfection of wisdom, cognizes thus, non-existence is the perfection of wisdom, and so are the other perfections, so is form too, the Buddha Dharmas, then the bodhisattva succeeds in turning over into the supreme enlightenment, the foundation of meritorious work associated with rejoicing. When he turns over in this way, then it becomes turned into the supreme enlightenment. Thereupon, Maitreya, the bodhisattva, the great being, said to Subhuti, the elder, how that by a son or daughter of good family who has newly set out in the vehicle, these wholesome roots become turned over into full enlightenment? And how do they become turned over after foundation of meritorious action, which is connected with rejoicing, has been acquired? Subhuti. If Maitreya, a bodhisattva who, newly set out in the vehicle, courses in perfect wisdom, and grasps this perfection of wisdom without taking it as a basis or without treating it as a sign, then he has much trusting confidence in the perfections, the 18 kinds of emptiness too. The 18 special Buddha Dharmas. He has been taken hold of by the good friend, and these his good friends expound to him, according to the meaning and the letter, just this perfection of wisdom and the other perfections, and expound them to him in such a way that he becomes one who is not lacking in the perfection of wisdom, and in all the perfections too. In the 18 special Buddha Dharmas, he has entered on the certainty that he will be saved by the special methods of a bodhisattva. He will expound the deeds of Mara, and, when he has heard the deeds of Mara, there will be in him neither growth nor diminution. And why? Because of these deeds of Mara no own being is made manifest. And he will never be deprived of the Buddhas, the Lords, until the time that he enters on a bodhisattva's special mode of salvation. Thereafter he will plant sufficient wholesome roots to enable him to obtain the bodhisattva family. And he will no more be deprived of the bodhisattva family until the time that he fully knows the supreme enlightenment. Moreover, a bodhisattva who has newly set out in the vehicle considers the accumulations of merit of those Buddhas and Lords whose tracks are cut off, whose course is cut off, whose obstacles are cut off, who are guides through the world of becoming, whose tears have dried up, whose impediments are all crushed, whose own burdens are laid down, whose own wheel has been reached, in whom the fetters of becoming are extinguished, whose thoughts are well freed by right understanding, and who have attained to the highest perfection in the control of their entire hearts, as well as the accumulations of merit of the Tathagatas who abide in countless world systems in all the 10 directions and demonstrate Dharma, together with their congregations of disciples.